Hey, I thought we'd take another trip down the memory hole and take a look at some old comics, but not the comics per se, but we'll be peeking at 1968 May copy of The Amazing Spider-Man. It's number 60. The Kingpin there on the cover, as you see, ready to do Spidey some irreparable harm. Anyway, rather than discuss the book itself, the actual story, which of course was read earlier, I thought I might dip into some of the mail at the time. Stan's soapbox, for example, and the Spider's Web. You know, get a feel for Stan's character and the way he related to his written audience at the time and their character and what their concerns were at that time. By 68, the big ball was rolling for Marvel Comics. You know, it had been about 6 or 7 years. About 6 years after a lot of their major titles had been released, and with a host of new superheroes. He and Kirby had been producing. But yeah, I thought we'd just take a peek at the soapbox and Spider's Web. Which, in this particular case, these letters are dealing with comments on issue 56. It was an issue where Spider-Man had gained amnesia. Well, you can check that out for yourself. He got amnesia, and they had some concerns, and they were writing about that. Now, I'm not going to get into the entirety of the bulletins. I don't know. There's no point in that. But I will read one of the letters from someone in the bullpen that sent, to the bullpen before I read Stan's soapbox, and then we'll get into the letters. So picking up in the bullpen, there's a letter after some of the items are listed for that month. Again, that's May 68, May 1968, issue 60 in the bulletins section. And it starts like this. Dear Bullpen, I want to compliment all you guys for the great entertainment your mags bring to the invalids and the ill in our nation's hospitals. Being a volunteer worker at a hospital in Philly, I know how lonely some of the patients are, so I gather up all of my doubles and distribute them among the patients. Unfortunately, I've only enough for one floor, so I'm asking all the kids with any extra marvels to bring them to the nearest hospital if they want to make a lot of patients happy. Thanks from myself and the many patients for the hours of enjoyment you furnish. Sincerely, Josh Zisman, 6716 North, 17th Street, R, Philadelphia, PA. And the response, our thanks to you, Josh, for a most worthwhile gesture and a grand idea. May we suggest that all our friends bring Marvel Mags, or indeed any worthwhile periodicals, to the nearest hospital as often as possible. You may not get a medal, but it's things like that which makes life just a little bit nicer for others. And isn't that really what it's all about? And he follows up with more surprises next issue, plus the final rank of Marveldom for you to memorize and treasure forever. But now, since we're running plumb out of room, let's blow our heads for the nonce and think tidy thoughts as we get into the mood for our sermon of the month, delivered as usual by our grinning guru, Smiling Stan himself. Stan's Soapbox. We told you that Marvel would make 68 the year of the big changes, and big excitement and big surprises. Well, believe it or not, there's still some in store for you. We've another couple of new titles to announce on this page next issue, and still more unexpected goodies to dangle before you as the months speed by. It's all part of a promise, a pledge we made a long time ago, when we vowed to continually improve the quality of comic book magazines, to make you proud to be a Marvelite. Incidentally, did you know that more than a dozen college professors throughout America now use Marvel mags in their English Lit courses as supplemental material? It's only a start, but we're getting there, gang. Anyway, we're presently working on a totally new magazine, one which may completely change the whole complexion of the comic book format. We expect it to be the most sensational success since Marvel itself first burst upon the public awareness with the impact of an H-bomb. Watch for clues in the months to come, and till we meet again, let's be good to each other. There's gotta be some hope for a race that keeps reaching for the stars. Signed, Smiley. And now, moving towards the spider's web. At the top, in the title block, they mention, send your letters to the Marvel Comics Group, 2nd floor, 625 Madison Avenue, New York, New York, 10022. First letter. Dear Stan and John, boy is that Stan a lousy writer. He has no imagination at all. None of the ways he described of how to get superpowers works. I tried them all. Why, I've been on top of telephone poles trying to get struck by lightning on cold, rainy nights. I caught a cold and broke my neck, and the shock of the thing almost killed me. I let myself get bitten by a radioactive spider. That thing itched for a month. I explored 100 caves, only one of which had a secret room with a stick lying on a rock in it. I pounded it on the ground. All it did was split. Tommy Rickman, 401 NW, 6th Street, Tulia, Texas. You've been doing it the hard way, Tommy. Why not try going up in a spaceship and getting pelted with some cosmic rays? They tell us it's sure fire. Second letter. Dear Stan and John, every day around my neighborhood seems like a day out of your Spidey comics. Except that there are no supervillains like Doc Ock or the Vulture around. Believe it or not, my name is Peter Parker. And, of course, my favorite hero is the one and only Spider-Man. Now all I need is a friend named Harry, a girl named Gwen, an enemy named Electro, and I'm all set. But I really wrote to tell you that I love Spidey, and I hope you will keep on writing his exploits forever. What do you think my nickname is and what I'm called by all the kids? You guessed it, Spidey. Peter Parker, 419 May Street, Braddock, PA, 15230. Response? Wowee, P.D.O., are we ever relieved. Until we read the last word, we were afraid your buddies might have tagged you Irving. Phew! Some guys have all the luck. Next letter. Dear Stan and John, In answer to a rather irate letter writer in issue number 56, I would like to put in a few words on your behalf. First, to start off, I am an avid fan of both Marvel and the other company mentioned. I don't believe your criticism of that company has ever gotten farther than the words brand ech. While they have put you down left and right whenever they could get a chance. They used to be a fairly good company, but now they have stooped so low that even an ant couldn't be closer to the ground. While you have stayed at the top, ever improving and increasing your excellent mags. You don't have to make fun, as he said, to remain at the top. You don't make cracks about brand ech to be vicious, as the competitor does, because undoubtedly, if you did, you would immediately go to the dogs. This indicates wise thinking. You have to have a lot of willpower not to break into criticisms of them as they are doing to you. Both companies have good art and plots, and when I want the finest entertainment from comics in art, action, story, and suspense, make mine Marvel. Roger Geberding, 259 North LaSalle Avenue, Bradley, Illinois, 60915. The response: Will do, Rog. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't have it any other way. But what's this about brand ech? Oops, we forgot we weren't going to call him that anymore. Ranking us out all the time? We never really looked at it that way. It always seemed to us that they were kidding around in a friendly way, just as we've done with them. Regardless, though, we'd like to just mark the whole situation, 'nuff said, and go on to more constructive topics of discussion, like the number of blossoming begonias in Aunt Petunia's Easter bonnet. Next letter. Dear Stan and John, I would say from reading the visible type in Jonah Jameson's newspaper front page, reproduced in part as a background for the cover of issue number 56, that the Daily Bugle is badly in need of proofreaders and makeup men. Not only does a story on the Pan American Games appear without a headline, but some type on a story about the effects of automation seems to have slipped into the body of the Spider-Man expose story, rendering the whole story gibberish. The Bugle also needs new headline writers and a new copy desk chief. Obviously, no deskman familiar with the bias of a publisher would have written, nor any copy chief approved the headline, Superhero Turns Bad. That Spider-Man is a menace has long been the Bugle's editorial stand. To Jameson, Spider-Man has not turned bad, he has always been bad. Additionally, to refer to Spider-Man as a superhero without surrounding the hyphenated word with quotation marks to denote irony also appears to be against the paper's policy. A better headline would have been, Superhero Proved Bad. To top the list of errors, the date of the newspaper is given as Saturday, October 18th, 1967. But October 18 fell on a Wednesday. It is to be assumed that Mr. Jameson, despite his unlovely personality, is a professional enough newspaperman to rectify the bad situations in his editorial, mechanical, and production departments, as even his most hypnotized subscribers will not put up with a paper that is simply unreadable. Evan Crawley, 3100 W. Lindale, Chicago, Illinois, 60647. Response: We won't argue that point, Evan, but fortunately there is an explanation. Since Groovy Gary Frederick is a former newspaper editor, we put him in charge of getting the extra edition ready for us for our cover. Unfortunately, of his many journalistic talents, we now know proofreading is not one. Hoo boy. Next letter. Dear Stan and John, not counting not brand Ech for the first time in the 4 years that I've been reading Marvel Comics, you have done something which I cannot help but look at and cringe in the utter loathfulness of it. This deed is your treatment of Steve Gordon's letter in issue 56. You implied, no, you just about declared it in capital letters, that the people who read any comic besides yours need psychiatric help. I was shocked when I read this. If you read the United States Constitution, which you, in the past, seem to have supported so strongly, you'll find that it guarantees freedom of speech. By ridiculing this person in front of 325,000 fans, at least 100,000 of whom believe your every word, you have endangered Steve's constitutional rights. I am quite sure you understand. All I ask is that you apologize to him. If your answer does not admit your violation of his rights, or if this is rewritten to make it seem like I forgive you in any way, you may consider your total circulation decreased by 150 comic books. This is the amount of Marvels that I buy each year. Warren Blim, D57, Brook Drive, Chester, New Jersey. Response? And we sure don't want to lose your business, worry. We can't afford it, so we apologize if we, in fact, did violate Steve's rights. Actually, we only thought we were good-naturedly telling him that we think our mags are better. Nothing more. But if anyone's feelings are hurt, we're truly sorry. Okay, Mr. B? Now, will you forget about taking it to the Supreme Court? Next letter. Dear Stan and John, wow, you guys have really gone far out this time. First you give Spidey amnesia, and then one by one, here come the problems. Of course, I'm speaking of issue 57. Boy, the troubles that guy's got. You just don't have any heart for 57 issues. All you've got to show for it is a long line of problems, although I predict this one ought to turn out with some surprise endings. One of these, I think, will be that he was just unconscious when Kazar pulled him out of the lake. Another is that when he recovers his memory, he will remember all the fuss Gwen put up just for Pete. I hope they get together, but it also brings up the problem that Gwen will hate Spidey. Oh well, I'm getting too confused, so until Zabu gets tooth decay, I'll say enough said. Dan Boyle, 6207 Mark Drive, Bedford Heights, Ohio. In that case, you're liable to be saying it for a long time, since Kazar allows his saber-toothed pussycat to brush with nothing but the fluoride toothpaste approved by the American Dental Association's Council on Dental Therapeutics. And the new improved version at that. Anyway, by now you know that you were right about Spidey being unconscious, and that the problem-plagued Mr. Parker still hasn't exactly moved in under his lucky star. But don't give up. Hope. Next ish, his fortunes will probably really turn sour. Next letter. Dear Stan and John, and by the way, just for your information, you probably figured it out. When he says Stan and John, he's talking about Stan Lee, of course, and John Romita. Smilin' Stan and Jazzy J, right? Who was art director at the time. Anyway. Dear Stan and John, Spider-Man number 56 was just too much for words. The art was just great. This issue had a lot of action in it. Actually, when I was reading it, I never thought I'd see Spidey committing a crime. Before this issue came out, I thought that Spidey would turn against Doc Ock's crime committing, even though he had amnesia. I sure hope he gets his memory back before something else happens, because I have the feeling that he may need it. A few weeks ago, I was reading a letter in a comic collector's magazine. It stated some very interesting things about Marvel Comics. Here is part of that letter. Marvel's quality remains consistently high with a few improvements and declines from month to month. The Fantastic Four and Spider-Man are their best mags, while X-Men, at the present, is their worst, due entirely to artists. Well, I disagree. I believe all Marvel mags are the best. Here is another part of that letter. Stan Lee, editor of Marvel Comics, was awarded one of Comicdom's highest honors when he was named this year's best editor and best writer in the field at the Academy Convention. I'm real proud of you, Stan, and I hope that you will do even more of the same every year so that you can win more awards and can always be the best editor and writer. Pratha Scullion, 1760 E Columbia Avenue, College Park, Georgia, 30022. Response: Well, we can't make any guarantees about the awards, Pratha. That's up to the Academy. What we can promise you, though, is that old Spidey and company will do their bullpen bustin' best to continue to bring you the finest in comic mag entertainment. Now, who says the Marvel age of comics can't last forever? Next letter. Dear Stan and John, I caught Stan's interview over WFMU and thought it was simply fab. But to get down to business, I would like to say I really enjoyed Spider-Man 56. It was a startling development to see Spidey lose his memory. John's artwork is really superb. I must mention that on page 20, panel 4, where Spidey's left-hand webbing is projecting in midair, it sticks to nothing. Look at the left-hand portion. There's no building. To get to the question of Peter's personality, I think he should be a swinger as opposed to a square. After all, times are changing, and Spider-Man should change with the times. Pete's life is more exciting, and it would be really depressing to see Pete become a wallflower again. Pete is a symbol of our generation, so you should keep him as you have him now. Of course, keep on giving him problems. That's Spidey's style. Well, until Doc Ock marries Aunt May, 'nuff said. Jeff Yablonka, 36 Nassau Road, Great Neck, New York, 11021. Response: And until a certain Jeff Yablonka learns how to spell phase front. As for Spidey sticking with the swinging style he's developed over the past few months, we would agree more than that it's currently what's happening. We can't make any promises as to what the future will bring our favorite wallcrawler, though. Who knows? Aunt May's next heart attack might change Petey's life again. Like maybe he'll become a motorcycle outlaw. Oh, and about the wedding. and about the webbing. It just hadn't reached what it was going to stick to yet. Can't you give us a measly couple of seconds? Sheesh. Personal note: I wonder if I wonder if this letter is what gave Stan the idea for the marriage issue between, or the attempted marriage of Doc Ock and Aunt May. I have that copy somewhere. I can't remember what the actual issue number is, but you never know. He doesn't mention it here, but I wonder if that's what got the gears turning for Stan at the time. Just a thought. Next letter. Dear Stan and John, What has fascinated me over a period of time I've been reading your Spider-Man feature is its entirely new storyline. Before the advent of Spider-Man, all you could see on the stands were the stories about the great superhero who was from the planet Flibajug and could lick any army of 10,000 with 9 fingers tied behind his back. Sincerely, it was rather dull. The artwork was dull, and they had the Marvy idea of cramming 4 stories into one 20-page issue. Very, very mass-produced. Then Peter Parker took the world by a storm. The idea was revolutionary. An 18-year-old science major in high school who was bitten by a radioactive spider during a class experiment. Now, right there, you have the makings of one of those Channel 7 6 o'clock science fiction movies like Flugel, the Super Ape Eats Allentown, PA. Stop him before he eats Kutztown. But even with the first issue, you develop what is cheerfully known as the gimmick. Parker is only 18, and the powers of a super spider take a lot of maturity. It's a big step for one so unprepared, and I must say you jumped at it with all the valves open and full steam ahead. First, Peter, every time Gwen or Mary Jane says Petey, I die a little, decides to get rich quick by working in a circus or some such. But his uncle is killed by a hood who passes Peter while the lad is merrily counting his week's pay in the hall. So Peter Parker apprehends the crook in some dank alley and pledges his life to fight crime. It may sound like I'm criticizing, but I'm not. But now we come to the real meat of Spider-Man's success. That is darling J. Jonah Jameson, who is Comicdom's Long John Nebel. This is the only flaw in the whole plot. A few issues ago, we learned why Jameson hates Spider-Man, because he is jealous of him. Now, this is weak JJJ doesn't have to take out his frustrations on Spider-Man. Why not the Fantastic Four or Daredevil? Why pick on poor Peter? This is really the only flimsy part of the plot. Nevertheless, I'm convinced that it is Jameson who gives Spider-Man its wide appeal among all age groups. Jameson is the reader's personification of the teacher who assigns too much homework, the neighborhood bully, or the man behind the cash register in the supermarket. The mean man. The mean man behind the cash register in the supermarket. He is, to coin a phrase, the villain. J. Jonah Jameson has a personal vendetta against Spidey, and he wraps his editorials around Spider-Man's throat. He has a firm grip on your readers' throats, too, and he won't let go either. Burton Wolder, 3288 Reservoir Oval East, Bronx, New York, 10467. You're darned right. You're darned straight he won't. If he's the one who has you Spidophiles hooked, we're gonna let him keep you that way. As a matter of fact, if he's really that great, maybe we could put a costume on him and change him into, would you believe, Triple J Man? Oh well. At least it'd beat having to read his editorials over a glass of instant breakfast every morning. And at the end of the page here, it's in block letters. Next, Spidey wins at last. Or does he? That's the end of the Spider's Web. Yeah. Here's something. Announcing 2 big #1 issues. They're advertising for on sale. Actually, they're saying on sale now at that time. And it's Prince Neighbor, the Submariner #1, and the Invincible Iron Man #1. I've seen both of these issues walled during the 70s, but there they are. You see them there, right? And yeah, that's good stuff. I mean, interesting to see. Yeah, well, that wraps up the mail for that issue. There are some things to be said for the issue, but that would be another time. So until next time, just leave it at there. Maybe have something else for you. A couple of issues in after 60. We'll see.